I stood in the parking garage of the Marriott on East Colfax, counting the 43 attendees who had witnessed her remark. I was leaning on my car's roof, trying to comprehend what transpired moments ago. They were friends, colleagues, her sister and mother, among others. Individuals who had consumed food at my expense, drank wine that I had personally brought up from the cellar that morning, and who smiled at me all night as I refilled their glasses, rearranged chairs, and troubleshot the Bluetooth speaker when it malfunctioned. When the photographer instructed them to gather, Delia looked straight at me, not with a wife's gaze, but with an expression that suggested my presence was out of place. She declared for all to hear, "Callum, could you please move out of the shot? Your face is somewhat marring the visual." A brief moment of quietness ensued, followed by an awkward laugh from someone. In response, someone quipped awe, as if it were a jest. Delia faced the camera once more with her birthday grin, and the photographer instructed, "Ready." A flash illuminated the scene, and I departed from the frame. Continuing onwards, I traversed through sliding glass doors, past the valet stand, across the parking lot until I reached my car. I left behind my jacket, said no farewells, and didn't turn back to confirm if she had noticed I was gone. I slipped inside, ignited the engine, and headed north on I-25 in the darkness without a specific destination, only a desire to be somewhere other than where she was. My name is Callum Hart, aged 38, a financial consultant residing in Denver, Colorado. That fateful night, the evening of my wife's 36th birthday party, marked the moment I recognized that I had been fading away prior to exiting that photograph. If you have ever felt unseen within your own relationship, this narrative is intended for you. Sign up, appreciate this video, and write in the comments when you first realized you were contributing more than receiving. What I'm going to share will alter my perspective on myself and everything else. Let me transport you back to the origin, not the sensational beginning, the subtle one. That's where it all starts. I encountered Delia Marsh at a rooftop fundraiser in Lodo, Denver's lower downtown district, roughly 6 years prior to these events. She was donning a yellow dress in October, a detail that might seem inconsequential, but it revealed something. It suggested she wasn't apprehensive about standing out. She was employed in brand marketing for a mid-sized tech company in Cherry Creek and conversed with an air of confidence that suggested she deemed herself intriguing. Rapid, assertive, her eye contact seemed like a challenge. I was instantly captivated by her. I'm not saying this as a compliment to her or a critique of myself. It's simply the truth. Spent most of my 20s constructing a consulting practice with little else to show. Delia made me feel as if I'd been existing in grayscale, and she was the vibrant hue I'd never encountered before. We dated for 14 months and exchanged vows at the Bocher mansion in Morrison, overlooking the foothills from a ridge. My mother wept. My brother delivered an extended toast. Delia looked at me that day as if I were precisely where she wished me to be. The initial 3 years were favorable, not flawless like a fairy tale, but genuinely enjoyable. We purchased a house in Washington Park. I expanded my clientele. She was promoted twice. For our second anniversary, we visited Portugal and argued over who was responsible for the missed restaurant reservation in Lisbon on our flight home. Despite this argument, it felt like something shared by two people destined to be together. Common strife, common existence. However, in the 4th year, there was a change. I initially noticed it in minor instances. The manner in which she responded to my queries with a sigh that insinuated, "Must we discuss this?" The habit of labeling her social engagements as our plans rather than mine, even when they technically encompassed me. The way she ceased inquiring about my job, not due to distraction, but an apparent lack of interest in my daily activities. I convinced myself it was just a phase. I convinced myself every marriage experiences such periods where both parties merely exist. I convinced myself all the necessary things for a man who wishes to believe his marriage is sound. However, the truth was more straightforward yet harsh. Delia had ceased perceiving me. Not instantly, but gradually, almost unnoticeably. It was similar to how a city neighborhood evolves. Slowly, barely perceptibly. And then one day, you stroll down a street you once adored and realize it's no longer familiar to you. During those years, she crafted a social sphere where I existed technically but never felt truly included. Friends from her workplace, a lively clique that socialized frequently, weekend brunches in Capitol Hill, evening gatherings at Rhino, and a spin-class clan appearing as a self-governed nation. As Delia's husband, my role was tranquil, dependable, and somewhat unnoticed, the one who took care of logistics. I paid the mortgage for our Washington Park house, managed our taxes, insurance, and investments. When her car required new tires, I scheduled the appointment. When her parents visited from Phoenix, I cleaned the entire house and prepared dinner both nights. By any observable standard, I was a devoted husband fulfilling my duties. Yet I had come to realize something about Delia that I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge. My utility did not equate to my worth. She acknowledged what I did. However, she didn't particularly cherish me. Predictably, the idea for her birthday party originated from her. At the Marriott's downtown event space, she desired to host her gathering, regardless of its cost, and I didn't contest. I wished for her an enjoyable evening. For weeks, I managed the arrangements, ensuring catering, decorations, a playlist painstakingly curated and drastically altered 3 days prior to the event were all in place. Approximately 30 friends from her circle, including family, were expected. My role that night was to be presentable, amiable, and ensure smooth operations, a responsibility I've honed skillfully during my marriage. An hour into the party, I found myself by the bar, observing Delia maneuver around the room. She excelled in social settings. She knew when to laugh appropriately, touched arms to emphasize points, tilted her head to signal attention and interest, making everyone feel special just for being close to her. I watched, thinking, tonight, she's putting on a show not for me, not because of me. I am the stage manager. For years, I've been serving as the stage manager. During this time, my friend Prue, who worked alongside me at the company, approached and stood by my side. Among the few individuals in Delia's circle, Prue was one of those who treated me with genuine respect. She would offer me drinks without prompting, express interest in my work, and remember past conversations. "Are you all right?" asked Prue. "Fine," I replied. "And you?" She scrutinized me with a slight concern. "You seem preoccupied." "I'm just exhausted," I said. "It's been a hectic week." She acknowledged this, but her gaze lingered on me, causing an uneasy feeling that she perceived something I wasn't yet ready to acknowledge openly. An hour later, the photograph was taken. The professional photographer Delia had hired, equipped with top-notch gear and not just an iPhone, assembled everyone near the distant wall of the ballroom. A white brick backdrop, warm string lights, an arrangement that would look striking in photographs. I moved to stand next to Delia. That's where a husband traditionally stands. Standing next to his wife, she glanced at me and spoke. "Callum, might you step out of the shot? Your presence is somewhat marring the visual." She uttered it casually in a manner people use when they believe harshness is justified by its delivery. It's as if they think if said gently, it's no longer hurtful. If delivered with a smile, it's not a blow. I felt something stir within me that I can't quite put into words. Not anger, not shame, though both were present. It was more like realization. As if my body had been anticipating this truth about my marriage, and her spoken words were merely the final confirmation reaching me. I exited the frame and continued walking. I drove north without a second thought, passing the Pepsi Center, the Mousetrap interchange, and venturing beyond Commerce City, where the refineries glowed orange against the night sky. 40 minutes were spent idly at a gas station in Thornton, parked in my car without engaging in any activity except letting the engine run. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't phone anyone, I didn't browse through my phone searching for validation, and I didn't write a message to Delia describing my emotions or requesting an explanation for her actions. For years, I had been the one who internalized problems and then resolved them, smoothing over situations so they appeared improved upon return. However, tonight was different. Tonight, I chose not to mend things. Instead, I opted to remain in a gas station parking lot in Thornton, allowing the public humiliation inflicted by my partner to stand unaddressed. This humiliation unfolded in a place significant to her, and I had arranged and paid for it, thinking that such gestures were essential expressions of love. For the first time in years, I didn't worry about my appearance as my phone buzzed. Not Delia, at least not initially. Instead, it was Prue who messaged, "Where did you go? Everything all right?" Then came a number belonging to someone named Becca, a lady from Delia's spin class whom I had encountered twice. Her text read, "She's still crying, no additional details." I spent a considerable amount of time contemplating her message. My wife, who had recently accused me of ruining her birthday photo by simply being in it to 43 people, was weeping, and one of her friends apparently deemed it appropriate to inform me of this, presumably anticipating my return to console her. I pondered the implications of such expectations, that I would take in what had transpired, retrace my steps, walk back in, and somehow find a solution to make her feel better about the moment she had embarrassed me. That's the role the dependable, silent, organized husband plays. That's the character I had agreed to portray. I placed my phone within the glove compartment, resumed driving, this time heading southward, not returning to Denver, but directing toward Castle Rock. The suburban lights gradually dimmed as I joined the expansive section of I-25. The sky widened, and the mountains remained a dark silhouette to the west, contrasting against a slightly lighter expanse of night. Memories of Delia in yellow at that fundraiser in Lodo flooded my mind. Memories of the Bocher mansion, my mother's tears, my brother's lengthy toast also resurfaced. Portugal and the pointless restaurant dispute were not forgotten. Neither was thinking about all the meals prepared for her parents, or the tire schedules arranged, or the logistics managed, which went unacknowledged since that's what unseen individuals do, ensuring smooth operations without being noticed. Memories of myself at 28, in the early stages of consultancy, working long hours and convinced that if I constructed something tangible, I would be entitled to a genuine life, also crossed my mind. Pondering at 38, I found myself a man asked to exit his wife's birthday picture due to my face spoiling the visual appeal, and I pondered, when did I consider that acceptable? It wasn't an overnight realization. No one wakes up to find their marriage has turned into a lessening. Instead, it's a gradual sequence of minor alterations, each sensible individually, until you suddenly perceive that you've tailored yourself nearly out of the scene. I had ceased expressing my opinions about social engagements, as she preferred making those herself. I had stopped discussing my work because it seemed to bore her. I had halted proposing joint trips as she embarked on journeys with her friends and appeared more captivated by those excursions. I had molded a self within this marriage that was practical, unobtrusive, and almost entirely camouflaged. On her birthday night, in front of 43 people, she made it clear with unwavering honesty that I wasn't a part of her life. Instead of returning home, I drove to my brother Jonah's place in Lakewood. He's a high school geography teacher, married to Renata, who manages hospital administration. They share their lives with 2 children, a golden retriever, and a finished basement equipped with a pull-out couch, a space that would have been a symbol of humiliation 6 months prior, but felt like the most truthful refuge on this particular night. At 12:30 in the morning, Jonah answered the door in his bathrobe. He didn't bombard me with questions. That's one of the qualities I've always admired about him. After making coffee, we sat at the kitchen island. I shared what transpired. Upon my confession, there was a brief pause. Then he asked, "What will you do now, not ignore Kia?" Are you certain that's what she meant? She might not have been under stress. Instead, it was the words people use to minimize problems they don't wish to confront. All I heard was, "What's your plan now?" And I admitted to myself that I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't returning to who I was the previous day. I spent the night on Jonah's sofa bed. The following morning, Renata prepared eggs without asking a single question, a silent act of compassion. Their 9-year-old son, Felix, sat opposite me at breakfast, sharing details about a documentary he watched on volcanic islands, oblivious to the adult turmoil nearby. I absorbed every word, as it was the most meaningful conversation I'd had in weeks. Delia called 14 times before 9 o'clock, but I ignored all calls. Her messages read, "Where are you? I'm afraid. Please return home." Another said, "I realize now what I said was wrong. Can we talk?" Yet another pleaded, "You aren't being fair. I want to discuss this." Within 11 minutes, she shifted from "I'm scared" to "I know I was wrong" to "You're overreacting." This suggested to me that she wasn't facing the reality of her actions, but testing responses to bring me back. Instead of texting Delia, I contacted Prue, informing her of my safety and staying with family. Prue responded promptly, expressing regret for what had been said, apologizing and appreciating my communication. Afterwards, I put away my phone, sat in Jonah's yard with a second cup of coffee and the dog named Governor, and made a list. It wasn't an extensive or emotional list about future decisions or divorce settlements. It was simply a list of facts about my life that I would stop denying. For at least 2 years, I hadn't felt truly understood by my wife. I had molded my identity according to her tastes, leaving me uncertain about my personal preferences. I even spent money on a birthday celebration where I was told my presence spoiled the picture, only for me to spend weeks preparing it for her pleasure. Despite being competent in my job, and as a husband in practical terms, I found myself unseen. I had not earned invisibility. The realization that my life couldn't continue this way was stark. The governor rested his head on my lap. I soothed him by scratching behind his ears. It seemed the simplest relationship I'd known for years. 2 days later, I returned home to find Delia in the living room, patiently waiting. She rose swiftly upon hearing my key turn, and her gaze held an acknowledging look, one that surfaced when she realized her actions had overstepped boundaries and she was figuring out the best way to rectify them. Composed, she uttered, "I am deeply sorry for what I said. It was inappropriate. I can't explain why I said it. I believe I was simply under pressure from the upcoming party, and I lashed out at you, which was unjust. This is a form of apology, but over our 6-year acquaintance, I've come to grasp the distinction between an apology and a request for reconciliation. This was the latter. She wasn't pleading for my forgiveness for what she had done. Instead, she was seeking to reinstate our agreement, to return to being my tranquil, helpful, inconspicuous spouse so her life could follow its planned course. I took a seat opposite her. I didn't embrace her. I didn't assure her it was all right. I asked, "Honestly, when did you stop regarding me?" She hesitated, her words straying from the script she'd rehearsed. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I responded. "I believe the incident at the party wasn't an accident, but a genuine moment. I think you saw me as an obstacle, someone who didn't fit your vision of life, and I feel this perception has persisted. I need to know when this feeling began." There was an extended pause. To her credit, she didn't immediately refute it. She sat opposite me, gazing at the coffee table, and remained silent for about a minute before whispering, "I can't say for certain." I think I began to feel that we were different individuals, and I wasn't sure how to inform you of that. "In what way?" she asked. "You're so reliable, so constant. You never require anything from me." And I waited, expecting to feel valued by you like I was indispensable, but it seemed you could manage without me. You clearly could. In every moment you seem capable and self-reliant, making me feel more like an ornament than a partner. Looking at you now, at this woman who has been the focal point in our relationship for 6 years, it strikes me that you have been revolving around something instead. "Feeling like an ornament," I echoed. "I understand how it might sound." "You were the aesthetic," I murmured. "I was disrupting it," she winced. "That's not." "Yes, it is," I said softly. Not confrontationally, but truthfully. "You said it because a part of you meant it. And I think we both need to acknowledge that our current lifestyle isn't sustainable. Because for years, Delia, I've been fading away. I stopped discussing my work, I stopped proposing ideas, I stopped asserting myself because I could tell you required less from me. And that was partly my responsibility, but not entirely." She began to weep then, genuine tears, not feigned ones. And in that moment I felt something unexpected: empathy. Not the type of suffering that causes panic. Rather, empathy for a woman who committed a hurtful act due to her own distress. However, empathy doesn't equate to returning to a life that rendered me insignificant. This is the aspect I wish to address cautiously, because it seems to be overlooked in narratives such as this one. It's often omitted in favor of the more polished tale where the victim departs and never looks back, leading to an enhanced life depicted by the closing credits. We pursued counseling. I feel it necessary to disclose this because I believe it's significant. We located a therapist named Dr. Trisha Weil, situated on South University Boulevard in Denver, 3rd floor, with a parking lot view that strangely suited discussions about unresolved issues. For 8 weeks, we attended sessions together, and then continued separately for another 4 weeks. Over time, we both spoke truthfully in ways we hadn't for years, and this helped clear things, even when it couldn't resolve them. The reality unfolded slowly and painfully as such. Delia married a version of me she believed could become a backdrop in her life, providing support, competence, and constant presence, but ultimately fading into the background. I allowed this because I had convinced myself that maintaining her comfort equated to being loved. We were both mistaken about our shared intentions. She wasn't malicious. Rather, she lacked the imagination to comprehend my inner world mattered, not due to her being a bad person, but because I hadn't asserted its significance. By the time we encountered Dr., it was too late for me to assert myself and claim my own identity. In our concluding shared meeting, Dr. Weil requested we elaborate on our ideal futures. The sincerity of our individual responses revealed much. Delia envisioned her social realm, her professional journey, a richly detailed life narrative involving a partner, yet not necessarily this specific one. My vision, however, differed greatly. It centered around rebuilding, discovering true desires, and reclaiming personal space. Such aspirations did not converge on the same path, suggesting the choice to end our marriage was not instantaneous. Instead, it transpired over 4 weeks of therapy sessions with Dr. while in the unspoken words exchanged between us, during those instances when I would gaze at Delia across her office coffee table, feeling neither rage nor affection, but a profound sadness akin to recognizing a door long sealed shut. I discussed the issue with my father in Fort Collins during early December at his home. He's been married to my mother for 39 years, which I've always considered a testament of consistent choice, and I wanted to hear his thoughts without him advising me on what to do. He listened attentively to everything I said, then he commented, "A marriage is two individuals opting to meet each day. From your account, she ceased making that choice, and in trying to ease her burden, so did you." I remained silent. "The issue," he continued, "is whether both of you wish to recommit to the decision-making process. Not whether you can move past the party incident or actually want to remain within each other's frame, but rather that intention, the word commitment." Afterward, I returned to Denver along I-25 in the evening with the Front Range glowing pink and orange on my left, and I knew the response. We filed for divorce in November, and the house was sold in February. Paid $115,000 less than its final sale price, an unusual aspect of Denver's real estate market unless one is familiar with it. Amicably, we parted ways without any disputes. Jonas compared the situation to two rational individuals admitting a mistake, which was both precise and a tad disheartening. I shifted to an apartment in the Highlands district, north of downtown, featuring a compact balcony facing west towards the mountains. Every morning I began my day there, sipping coffee on that balcony, observing the light shifts on the Front Range. Although it may sound insignificant, those first 30 minutes were entirely mine. My communication with clients altered, becoming more straightforward and less of the self-deprecating whatever suits. Demeanor I'd adopted as a shield against Delia's desire to dominate any conversation. In meetings, I adopted a more assertive stance, suggesting alternative viewpoints rather than merely proposing one possible option. My business saw an improvement, and my clients reaped better results as a result. Unbeknownst to me, the toned-down version of myself was proving less effective in my consulting role. Prue reached out to me a few weeks following the fallout, expressing her discomfort over the party incident, but appreciating that I stood up for myself despite appearances. We've met for coffee twice now. I admire her kindness and am thankful she was present at that gathering. Jonah and Renata invited me for dinner about every fortnight during the initial months, an unacknowledged act of care on my part, I believe. Governor, the golden retriever, continued to greet me with boundless enthusiasm each time we met. Approximately 4 months following the divorce, as I was concluding work on a client's retirement portfolio during late hours, I received a LinkedIn message from Simone Grady, an urban planner for Denver City. A mutual acquaintance had recommended my firm. She was direct, professional, and concise. Instead of my former self, who had spent years conforming to fit another's vision, I promptly responded professionally and appropriately. The man who once believed his face spoiled images would have hesitated or found excuses to delay, question, and remain small. However, that was no longer me. Simone and I met over coffee at a place on 32nd Avenue, known for its abundant natural light, excessive greenery, and excellent espresso. We conversed for 2 hours on urban infrastructure, a subject I'd never found interesting before, along with my past actions and reasons behind them, my views on Denver, its transformation, and what it had left behind. At some point during our discussion, I mentioned that I had gone through a divorce the previous year. She acknowledged this, asking, "Was it difficult?" I responded by saying, "It was enlightening." She empathized, her eyes mirroring someone who had also been affected by a challenging experience, and said, "Indeed, that's an accurate description." I am documenting this conversation not because it had a satisfying conclusion. It didn't. Life doesn't provide resolutions. Instead, it presents crossroads, and what truly matters is how we navigate them. For me, the crossroads occurred at a birthday party. There were 43 attendees, a flash, a wife looking at me as if I was an obstruction in her vision of her life. I was the one exiting the scene, and this time not re-entering in the same fashion, now understanding aspects I hadn't known before. Invisibility isn't the equivalent of comfort, I pondered. I was finding truce. I was vanishing myself. A person who values your presence will inform you. You don't need to earn a spot in a duet's frame. The instant someone deems you an obstacle in your own life isn't the moment for contrition. It's the moment to question how you arrived there. And this, it's never too late to claim that you occupy space. At 38 years old, standing in a Marriott parking garage on East Colfax in Denver, Colorado, with my hands on my car roof, I made that decision. It wasn't stylish. It wasn't comfortable. It was merely real. Delia resides in a Cherry Creek condo. I pick up snippets here and there due to the unavoidable social sphere overlap in a city like Denver. She appears okay. I truly hope she is well. Sitting on my balcony amidst the highlands, sipping coffee with the mountains to the west, I find myself more immersed in my own life than I have been in years. And this is no trivial matter. It's everything. What struck me deeply about Callum's tale wasn't the party or what she said, but rather that he had been shrinking himself for years, mistaking it as love. I believe many of us share this mistake. We often equate maintaining harmony with preserving a relationship, but they are fundamentally different. The moment you start modifying yourself to accommodate another's comfort, you are no longer in a relationship. You are putting on a show, and all shows come to an end. If my story resonates with something within you, share it below. I read every comment carefully. If you aren't subscribed yet, why wait? Click the button now. See you in the next video.